34, ninth circle, Cocytus, compound fraud, round 4, Judica, the treacherous to their masters, the center, Satan. On march the banners of the king. Virgil begins as the poets face the last depth. He is quoting a medieval hymn, and to it he adds the distortion and perversion of all that lies about him. On march the banners of the king of hell. And there before them, in an infernal parody of Godhead, they see Satan in the distance, his great wings beating like a windmill. It is their beating that is the source of the icy wind of Cocytus, the exhalation of all evil. All about him in the ice are strewn the sinners of the last round, Judica, named for Judas Iscariot. These are the treacherous to their masters. They lie completely sealed in the ice, twisted and distorted into every conceivable posture. It is impossible to speak to them, and the poets move on to observe Satan. He is fixed into the ice at the center, to which flow all the rivers of guilt, and as he beats his great wings as if to escape, their icy wind only freezes him more surely into the polluted ice. In a grotesque parody of the Trinity, he has 3 faces, each a different color, and in each mouth he clamps a sinner, whom he rips eternally with his teeth. Judas Iscariot is in the central mouth, Brutus and Cassius in the mouths on either side. Having seen all the poets now climb through the center, grappling hand over hand down the hairy flank of Satan himself, a last supremely symbolic action, and at last, when they have passed the center of all gravity, they emerge from hell. A long climb from the earth's center to the Mount of Purgatory awaits them, and they push on without rest, ascending along the sides of the river Lethe, till they emerge once more to see the stars of heaven just before dawn on Easter Sunday. On march the banners of the King of Hell, my master said. Toward us, look straight ahead. Can you make him out at the core of the frozen shell? Like a whirling windmill seen afar at twilight, or when a mist has risen from the ground, just such an engine rose upon my sight, stirring up such a wild and bitter wind, I cowered for shelter at my master's back, there being no other windbreak I could find. I stood now where the souls of the last class, with fear my verses tell it, were covered wholly. They shone below the ice like straws in glass. Some lie stretched out, others are fixed in place upright, some on their heads, some on their soles. Another, like a bow, bends foot to face. When we had gone so far across the ice that it pleased my guide to show me the foul creature which once had worn the grace of paradise, he made me stop, and stepping aside he said, Now see the face of Dis. This is the place where you must arm your soul against all dread. Do not ask, reader, how my blood ran cold and my voice choked up with fear. I cannot write it. This is a terror that cannot be told. I did not die, and yet I lost life's breath. Imagine for yourself what I became, deprived at once of both my life and death. The emperor of the universe of pain jutted his upper chest above the ice, and I am closer in size to the great mountain the Titans make around the central pit than they to his arms. Now, starting from this part, imagine the whole that corresponds to it. If he was once as beautiful as now, he is hideous, and still turned on his Maker. Well, may he be the source of every woe. With what a sense of awe I saw his head towering above me, for it had 3 faces. One was in front, and it was fiery red. The other 2, as weirdly wonderful, merged with it from the middle of each shoulder, to the point where all converged at the top of the skull. The right was something between white and bile. The left was about the color that one finds on those who live along the banks of the Nile. Under each head 2 wings rose terribly, their span proportioned to so gross a bird I never saw such sails upon the sea. They were not feathers, their texture and their form were like a bat's wing, and he beat them so that 3 winds blew from him in one great storm. It is these winds that freeze all Cocytus. He wept from his 6 eyes, and down 3 chins the tears ran mixed with bloody froth and pus. In every mouth he worked a broken sinner, between his rake-like teeth. Thus he kept 3 in eternal pain and at his eternal dinner. For the one in front, the biting seemed to play no part at all compared to the ripping. At times the whole skin of his back was flayed away. That soul that suffers most, explained my guide, is Judas Iscariot, who kicks his legs on the fiery chin and has his head inside. Of the other 2, who have their heads thrust forward, the one who dangles down from the black face is Brutus. Note how he writhes without a word. And there, with the huge and sinewy arms, is the soul of Cassius. But the night is coming on, and we must go, for we have seen the whole. Then as he bade, I clasped his neck, and he, watching for a moment, when the wings were opened wide, reached over dexterously, and seized the shaggy coat of the king-demon, then grappling matted hair and frozen crusts from one tuft to another, clambered down. When we had reached the joint where the great thigh merges into the swelling of the haunch, my guide and master, straining terribly, turned his head to where his feet had been, and began to grip the hair as if he were climbing, so that I thought we moved toward hell again. "Hold fast," my guide said, and his breath came shrill with labor and exhaustion. "There is no way but by such stairs to rise above such evil." At last he climbed out through an opening in the central rock, and he seated me on the rim, then joined me with a nimble backward spring. I looked up, thinking to see Lucifer as I had left him, and I saw instead his legs projecting high into the air. Now let all those whose dull minds are still vexed by failure to understand what point it was I had passed through judge if I was perplexed. "Get up on your feet," my master said. "The sun already mounts to middle tierce, and a long road and hard climbing lie ahead." It was no hall of state we had found there, but a natural animal pit, hollowed from rock, with a broken floor and a close and sunless air. "Before I tear myself from the abyss," I said when I had risen, "oh, my master, explain to me my error in all this. Where is the ice? And Lucifer, how has he been turned from top to bottom? And how can the sun have gone from night to day so suddenly?" And he to me, "You imagine you are still on the other side of the center, where I grasp the shaggy flank of the great worm of evil, which bores through the world. You were, while I climbed down, but when I turn myself about, you pass the point to which all gravities are drawn. You are under the other hemisphere, where you stand. The sky above us is the half opposed to that which canopies the great dry land. Under the midpoint of that other sky, the man who was born sinless, and who lived beyond all blemish, came to suffer and die. You have your feet upon a little sphere which forms the other face of the Judica. There it is evening, when it is morning here. And this gross fiend and image of all evil, who made a stairway for us with his hide, is pinched and prisoned in the ice pack still. On his side he plunged down from the heaven's height, and the land that spread here once hid in the sea, and fled north to our hemisphere for fright. And it may be that, moved by that same fear, the one peak that still rises on this side fled upward, leaving this great cavern here. Down there, beginning at the further bound of Beelzebub's dim tomb, there is a space, not known by sight, but only by the sound, of a little stream descending through the hollow. It has eroded from the massive stone in its endlessly entwining, lazy flow. My guide and I crossed over and began to mount that little-known and lightless road to ascend into the shining world again. He first, I second, without thought of rest. We climbed the dark, until we reached the point where a round opening brought in sight the blessed and beauteous shining of the heavenly cars, and we walked out once more beneath the stars. Notes. 1. On March, the banners of the king. The hymn was written in the 6th century by Venantius Fortunatus, bishop of Poitiers. The original celebrates the Holy Cross and is part of the service for Good Friday to be sung at the moment of uncovering the cross. 17. The foul creature, Satan. 38. 3 faces. Numerous interpretations of these 3 faces exist. What is essential to all explanation is that they be seen as perversions of the qualities of the Trinity. 54. Bloody froth and pus. the gore of the sinners he chews, which is mixed with his slaver. 62. Judas. Note how closely his punishment is patterned on that of the simoniacs. 67. Huge and sinewy arms. The Cassius who betrayed Caesar was more generally described in terms of Shakespeare's lean and hungry look. Another Cassius is described by Cicero as huge and sinewy. Dante probably confused the two. 68. The night is coming on. It is now Saturday evening. 82. His breath came shrill. Where the fact that Dante breathes indicates to the hypocrites that he is alive, Virgil's breathing is certainly a contradiction. 95. Middle tierce. In the canonical day, tierce is the period from about 6 to 9 a.m. Middle tierce, therefore, is 7:30. In going through the center point, they have gone from night to day. They have moved ahead 12 hours. 128. The one peak, the Mount of Purgatory. 129. This great cavern, the natural animal pit of line 98. It is also Beelzebub's dim tomb, line 131. 133. A little stream, Lethe. In classical mythology, the river of forgetfulness from which souls drank before being born. In Dante's symbolism, it flows down from purgatory, where it has washed away the memory of sin from the souls who are undergoing purification. That memory it delivers to hell, which draws all sin to itself. 143. Stars. As part of his total symbolism, Dante ends each of the three divisions of the Commedia with this word. Every conclusion of the upward soul is toward the stars, God's shining symbols of hope and virtue. It is just before dawn of Easter Sunday that the poets emerge, a further symbolism.